Okay, this is the second video on the semester exam, and we'll be covering questions 11 through 20. So which of the following is the most useful in establishing a cause and effect relationship? Well, to have a cause and effect relationship, we have to randomly assign treatments and conduct a controlled experiment. So the one that does that is E, the experiment, okay? The town has one high school which buses students from urban, suburban, and rural communities, so 3 different groups. Which of the following sampling techniques is the most recommended in studying the attitudes towards military enlistment after high school graduation? It is quite possible that there's a difference between each group. Consequently, we need to make sure each group is represented, and the way to do that is to survey some from the urban, some from the suburban, and some from the rural. This makes for a stratified sample, or letter C. Moving on to number 13. A critical difference between experiments and observational studies is, once again, in an observational study, the subject chooses what they want to choose, and in an experiment, they are randomly assigned treatments. Treatments are given to them. And consequently, an experiment can show a causation or causal relationship. An observational study can only show a relation or association. And this word also could have been relation. So the best answer for this one is letter A. An experiment can show a causation, where an observational study can only show association or relation. A candy manufacturer wants to test a consistency of the sugar content of chocolate-covered cherries produced in one factory. The company decides to randomly select 3 boxes of chocolate-covered cherries from each day's production run at the factory and analyze every cherry in each of these boxes. So we're selecting groups. So anytime we're selecting groups, it could either be stratified or a cluster. In a stratified, we randomly select within the group. In a cluster, we test every one, or we sample every one. And so in this case, they're going to sample, it says here, and analyze every cherry. So they're going to check every single cherry within the group. If you're checking everything in the group, that makes it a cluster. So broken into groups, checking everyone in the group is a cluster. That's letter A. Number 15, to study the effects of music on piecework output at a clothing manufacturer, 2 experimental treatments are planned. Day-long classical music for one group versus day-long light rock for another. Which of the following groups would serve best as a control for the study? Well, remember, a control group often gets either the status quo or they get a placebo where they're not getting anything at all. So in this case, we have rock music, classical music. So a third group would be the status quo or receiving a placebo where no music is played. So we're going to say no music being played, which is letter A. 16, which of the following statements about sampling error is incorrect? Once again, anytime it's incorrect, make true, false. Sampling error concerns natural variations between samples, is always present and can be described using probability. Well, guess what? That's true. Sampling error can be eliminated only if sampling error cannot be eliminated. So this is going to be false, so this is probably our answer. Sampling error is generally smaller when the sample size is larger. That's true. Increasing sample size decreases sampling error. Sampling error is unrelated to bias. That's also true. And sampling error is greater when working with higher confidence level. We haven't talked about that yet, but we will, and that is also true. So our best answer on this one, on 16, is letter B. Sampling error is not going to be eliminated, okay, because the sample is only an estimate of the population. We're only using a portion, so we're going to always have some error because we're not going to make, if we're using a portion of the population, it's not perfect to the whole. Which of the following is a true statement about blocking? Blocking is to experimental design, and stratification is to sampling design. That is completely true. Blocking is just like stratification. You break it into a group based on unknown characteristics. You may have males on one side and females in another group, freshmen in one group, sophomores in a group, juniors and seniors in separate groups. All right, so 17 is going to be A. Number 18. In one study, subjects were randomly given either 500 or 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C daily, and the number of colds they came down with during the winter season was noted. In the second study, people responded to a questionnaire asking about the average number of hours they sleep per night and the number of colds they came down during a winter season. So we want to know, the first study was an experiment without a control group, while the second was an observational study. And when we look at this, they were either given 500 or 1,000. So we'd have no placebo group, but they were randomly assigned. So that means the first one was an experiment. And since there was no placebo, there was no control group. In the second one, they asked them a questionnaire. In other words, they checked on what they were already doing. So this is letter A. The first one is an experiment, and the second one is an observational study. Experiment, assigned treatment, observational study, questionnaire about people, what they're already doing. Ann Landers, who wrote a daily advice column appearing in the newspapers across the country, once asked her readers, if you had to do it over again, would you have children? Of the more than 10,000 readers who responded, 70% said no. What does this show? Well, remember, there was no randomization and just put it out to everybody. So everyone got to volunteer to respond. So only those who have strong opinions, those who either think their kids are the greatest on earth or they think they're little devils. So consequently, the survey is meaningless because of voluntary response bias, because no randomization was employed. So number 19 is letter A. Number 20. The buyer for an electronics store wants to estimate the proportion of defective wireless game controllers in a shipment of 5,000 controllers. The shipment consists of 200 boxes. So basically you have 200 boxes with each containing 25 groups. The buyer numbers the boxes 1 to 200 and randomly selects 6 numbers. She opens the 6 boxes with the corresponding numbers and examines all 25 controllers. That's a key word. All right. And determines the proportion of 150s that are defective. What type of sample is this? Well, first off, we have it broken into groups. So consequently, it's either stratified or cluster. But they surveyed all. You survey all that's in a group. If you survey everything in the group, it's a cluster. All right. So this one, number 20 is letter E. And this concludes the second video.